My name is Sylvia Warnecke from the Research Institute Thünen, Thünen Institute of Organic Farming in northern Germany. We are a federal research institute, and I myself do on-farm research on dairy farms with a bunch of other people. Yeah, it will come. But Helga is first.
It's first.
Ah, no. Ah, sorry, I mixed it up. It's not Helga first. Yeah. So could you swap it again? Thank you. Yeah, so I'm excited that we will now hear something about on-farm research at the beginning. It's Veronique Chable from INRA in France who will talk about that. And after that, we will hear something on the data side. From Helga Willer from Chable in Switzerland, who will talk about collection of, I would say, kind of statistic data. Is that correct? But she will talk about that later on then. And the last speaker would be Yıldız Nemli from Turkey. He should be the last speaker, but he will not be in this session, but he has moved to the next time slot. He will talk just in the next room at 16:30. So he's the first speaker there then, just in case you came to hear him. And I would like to ask the both of you, the presenters, to give a short introduction about yourself. And then I'm not quite sure whether for the practitioners track we have the time slot for 10 minutes for each presentation as well, or if you were given a time slot of 15 minutes. I'm not quite sure. Have you received any information on that? Because I just jumped into this session as a chair, so I'm really not informed.
Yes,
okay.
Because we were told that we have a few minutes more because we were only 3 instead of 4.
Yeah, okay.
And now we have 2 instead of 3. So.
Okay, so how about we just decide on 15 minutes talk, and would you be more comfortable if we had a question and answer session in the end, just after the both of your talks? Yeah, okay, so then we'll do that. Then the stage is yours.
Thank you. So I am Veronique Chable from the National Research Institute in France. So I am working for 12 years now on participatory plant breeding for organic agriculture. And for 4 years I was coordinating a European project which is named SOLIBAM, Strategy for Organic and Low Input Breeding and Management. So today I focus on one experience with farmer, and both authors are myself as researcher and Rémi Lebrun as a representative of Farmers Group. So the context is a farmer initiative we have begun on 2002 in the southwest of France in the context of participatory plant breeding to answer to specific question of organic farmers. And we have the support for this part, for this particular aspect of quality of product of SOLIBAM. To understand the context, I present you a short history of maize in France. The species arrived in the 16th centuries and was first developed for human consumption in some region in France. We have developed some specific recipes, but in the 20th centuries, the introduction of F1 hybrids opened new opportunity for this species for feed for animals, and in these regions, the traditional use has been more or less forgotten. So during the 20th centuries, we have less of diversity on the species, but also we have lost the use. And at the end of the 20th centuries, with the development of organic agriculture and the question about seed for organic agriculture, we renew to diversity for this species with the farmers, but also connected to the action of the farmers, end users also wanted to develop new recipe to reconnect with the tradition, but also to develop new new application, new end use of maize. So to complete the context of France about participatory plant breeding, we have more or less 12 years for all the species, and the beginners of the experience was farmer bakers for wheat, because in organic agriculture, they try to renew with the traditional bread in France with natural sourdough, because bakery has evolved also during the last centuries, forgotten the traditional sourdough, preferring bread made with yeast. So for more than 10 years, in several regions, we have developed several experiences with many species. And maize, in the southwest of France, was nearly the first one to develop participatory plant breeding. So the group is around a group of farmers. One farm was as a collective field and receive all the experimentation for the other farmers to discover the diversity, and from this base, this common field, farmers are able to choose what variety could fit to their objective, and after they could implement in their farm their own experience of observation of genetic resources and breeding. So I show you a picture, a nouvelle création paysanne, new peasant varieties. The particularity of the farmers involved in participatory plant breeding, in this organic farmer, they prefer to use the word peasant, because in French peasant name also the connection of pays, and the farmers who are developing seeds and organic agriculture prefer this word of peasant to recognize the action of local action also. So the variety I name new peasant varieties. And to end with the context, all the farmers in each region have created seed associations, and these seed associations are connected all together in the network, which is named Réseau Semences Paysannes. So the réseau was created in 2003, and now we have 75 seed associations in this network. Soliban to support this kind of research. We have the objective of Soliban was to improve performance of organic agriculture, but also the stability of performance and the quality of the product. For many species, we try to connect breeding and the qualities. And we have 7 model species, which was wheat, barley, maize, faba beans, broccoli, and tomatoes. And among all the projects, we have a particular focus of maize, connecting a group of farmers in France, but also a group of farmers of Portugal. But today, I will mainly speak about the experience of France to connect with all the story of seed breeding in France. So to connect to the subject of practitioner track, we were invited to specifically describe the building. So we have bridging traditional system and future system through traditional variety to new varieties, to ancient and traditional recipe. We are bridging also stakeholders, because all actors committed in renewing diversity from maize to soy to folk were involved in the project. And also we are trying to bridging strategy to try to build real transdisciplinary research. So the actor was the farmers, the researcher. I took a picture of Altair Machado from Brazil, because it is also the occasion to connect with other experience. So Altair has visited farmers, explained also his experience in Brazil. We have bakers, cookers, and consumers. Which quality? We try to work at the same time of different aspects of quality, nutritional quality, and the cooperation with our colleague from Portugal was very useful, and use quality with the farmer and miller, bakery, and also organoleptic quality with the consumers. The tested varieties. So at the beginning, we try to better know what the particularity of the available variety and the new farmer varieties. So we have a large panel of type of variety from traditional in France, traditionally other country, new present variety, and we have also control of hybrid F1 hybrid. So the experiment was conducted on the farm, on one farm, in organic management, and the aim of this experiment was to be, the first aim of the farm involved in participatory plant breeding for maize, it was to reduce irrigation and to be able to produce maize without irrigation, because all southwest of France produce maize with irrigation. So several steps studied between grain to food. So we have to study how, at the mill, how to produce flour and semolina with consumer, experimenting several kinds of sensorial tests. Also with baker and cooker, experimenting at the same time traditional recipe and innovating new ones. And in the lab to be able to better know the protein contents and nutritional contents. So for the milling studies, we try different, for these different type of varieties, different type of semolina and flour, and to try the best way to produce this flour. And we can, this picture only to illustrate with 3 varieties. We have very different kind of colors, of quality, of end-use quality of semolina and flour according to the varieties. And we can see the varieties have very different colors, so we can obtain very different product. It is why cooker was very interesting in our experience, and we have big chefs in Bordeaux, famous restaurants who try to innovate it with us. So to study milling, we have also to study conservation, type of conservation. So the farmer was comparing natural drying process or artificial heating to find the best way to conserve the varieties on farm, the grain on farm. We have, and from this semolina, different kind of semolina, also the cooker try different, with the same recipe, we can have very different product. And the consumer were invited to test and to help to do the best choice for this milling aspect. So we have trying very simple sensorial experiment, but we can obtain very interesting results involving very simple consumer. And nevertheless, the cooker and the chef, also food expert, could go further and better determine what is the quality of the variety, but not all the consumer. So we have a lot of meetings with the consumer. We have farm days, but also several meetings in the region. And at the same, we took the opportunity to involve consumer to taste our product. So there is a mistake in my picture, illustrating what the results. 4 it is the worst and 1 it is the best. So you can see that the commercial variety, the F1 hybrid, was not at all good for the consumer. But there are no difference between the traditional variety and the new peasant variety. So they make the difference between population and the F1 hybrid, but not between the population varieties. And they were tested for one traditional recipe, which is polenta. So innovation with new peasant varieties was very diverse, from the starter to dessert, and the cooker have many ideas with all kinds of flour and semolina we can obtain with the population. And nutritional quality also was very diverse, and we were surprised to measure from the results of polyphenol and antioxidant contents of the diversity. And, but mainly for protein, population was nearly always better than the F1 hybrid. So at the end of our project, Solibam project, we have scientific results, we have technical results, methodological results, but we have also a book of recipe to show that Soliban can really cover all the aspects from the soil to the food. So it is nearly finished, our book of recipe. So the book of recipe is organized with a description of the variety for the farmer who want to breed this variety or to begin breeding for this variety, but at the same time, the best way to cook this variety from one cooker. And the next step, because when we are working with a farmer, we have to always new questions. So the new question, for example, is just to better assess to the quality of protein content, because all the farmer understood that the farmers, the ancient, were able to increase protein contents of the variety, but they were wondering how they are doing, so which will help us to better assess the quality of the maize on phenotypical aspect. Connecting farmers group in France, in Portugal, there is new question about milling because they have different traditions. I am finished, conclusion. There are different traditions, and the contact within farmers was also very interesting to share not only scientific aspect, but traditional and knowledge of both groups. And also farmers now connecting also with experience in South America and also other group of in the world involved in maize. They wish to try several strategy of maize improvements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So then I invite Helga Willer up to the stage.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Helga Willer. I work at the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture in Switzerland, and this is a joint paper of myself and my colleague Julia Nanu, who is here as well. And yeah, we've been collecting data on organic farming for a while now, and yeah, I want to present you the latest data from our latest survey. Yeah, we collect the data for an organic agriculture worldwide, key indicators, in collaboration with the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements. We have about 200 data suppliers worldwide. These are representatives of the private sector, certifiers, universities, government official or statistical offices. And we collect data on the area, the number of farmers, further operator types, production, livestock numbers, retail sales, exports and imports. Having said that, we collect them, or try to collect them, but it doesn't mean the data are available on all these indicators for all countries. The data collection activities are funded by the Swiss State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, who've been supporting us for 4 or 5 years now, the International Trade Center in Switzerland, as well as Nürnberg Messe, who actually initiated the data collection 15 years ago. And recently, we've had funding for the European data collection through the Organic Data Network project. We publish the data every year as a book called The World of Organic Agriculture. Every year at BioFach, the book is presented and the latest data are launched. And we also have a website where can you download the book, and you find also the data tables. The latest data in a nutshell, we have 164 countries that provide data, 37.5 million hectares of organic agricultural land that are organic. That's about less than 1% of the world's agricultural land. But we have 10 countries that have more than 10% of their land organic, or even more. And we have almost 2 million producers, farmers, and probably there are more, but that's what we counted. And the retail sales with organic products were about 15 billion euros in 2012. This is the distribution of the organic agricultural land and the wild collection areas by continent. You can see that Oceania has a large organic agricultural area, that's mainly Australia, followed by Europe, which has more than 11 million hectares, Latin America, Northern America, Asia, and Africa. Africa doesn't have a lot of organic agricultural land, but it has huge wild collection areas, areas that are not managed, agriculturally managed, but from which organic certified products are collected. Yeah, this is the distribution by continent. Oceania, the continent with the largest share, but Europe has actually been growing considerably in the last year, so those two have about 1/3 each of the global organic agricultural land. These are the countries with the largest areas: Australia, Argentina, and the United States, China, and then followed by a couple of European countries. So we have 4 European countries that have more than 1 million hectares now. Looking at the share of the agricultural land, I said we have 10 countries with more than 10%, but actually the Falkland Islands, they have almost 40%, and Liechtenstein, which is a small country between Switzerland and Austria, has 30%, Austria 20%, and you can see, I mean, this is quite impressive to see how much organic agricultural land we have in some countries. This is a brief look at organic farming by continent. These are the maps that we have in the book, and there you can see the hectares for each country, and the darker a country is, the higher is the organic percentage. And with this combination of the maps, you can see quite well that Europe is quite advanced in terms of organic farming, that quite a number of countries have relatively high shares of organic. It looks quite different from Africa or from Asia. Yeah, this is the growth of the organic agricultural land. It has more than trebled since 1999, when we started with our data collection, now at 37.5 million hectares. And you can see that the development in the continents is quite diverse. The blue line is Europe, where we had constant growth. The red line is Latin America, where we've ups and downs. And stagnation, more or less, in Oceania, good growth in North America and also Africa, and again ups and downs in Asia, which is the light green line. Yeah, oh sorry, this should go. Yeah, these are the numbers of producers. You can see that the producers are distributed quite differently from the area. We have most in Asia, with India being the country with the largest numbers, and then followed by Africa and Europe, whereas Oceania, which has so much organic land, has actually only very few producers, because these are all very big farms, at least those in Australia. Yeah, and that's the growth of the producers. You can see it's a constant growth, and I should note that we do not cover all producers in our survey, because some data or some certifiers, when they give us data, they only tell us the number of companies they certify, but not the numbers of producers that are maybe associated to them. So the figure is probably higher than what we have here. We also look at the global market, the retail sales with organic products. And the first chart shows the distribution by country. The United States is the country with the largest market, covering almost 44% of the global retail sales, followed by Germany, France, Canada, the UK, and Italy. And the second chart shows you how it looks by country group. I mean, or by single market is the right word. You have the United States with 44%, followed by the European Union with 41%, and then the other countries. Yeah, and this is another chart where you see again the top 10 countries: United States, Germany, France, Canada, UK. And on the right, you actually see how high the per capita consumption is for organic products. And there the distribution is quite different. You can see that in Switzerland, almost 200 euros are spent each year per person on organic food, followed by Denmark, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, all European countries. The United States is rank 8, and then comes Canada. What we've done recently, that we've also looked at the per capita consumption, not only calculating it by dividing the total market to the population, but by adjusting it to the purchasing power. And there you can actually see that the order is quite different. You can see, for instance, here that Germany is about number 8 or 7. And very far away from Switzerland, only half or less than half of the Swiss per capita. And here the order, when it's adjusted to the actual purchasing power in the different countries, Switzerland isn't number 1 anymore, but Austria and Germany is fairly high up. This is only a European chart, though. We haven't done it this yet for the United States, and Canada is not included. Yeah, we also do not only look at these key indicators, like how big is the area, how many farmers are there per country and worldwide, and how big is the market, but we also look at the area by crop. And so we have a fairly good overview of how the organic land is used: arable crops, permanent grassland. That's the classification that FAO uses. And on the right-hand side, you can see what the key arable crops are and how many hectares, million hectares in this case, are used for cereals, green fodder from arable land, oilseed, protein crops, and vegetables. And the key permanent crops are coffee, olives, grapes, nuts, and cocoa. There you can see the development of some of these crops. It's actually very interesting to see how the area for the tropical fruit, bananas and others, grew very fast in the past 8 years. Well, this is showing 2004 to 2012. Also, coffee grew fast. With cocoa, I don't quite know what the story is, ups and downs, but definitely a huge growth compared to 2004. And citrus also an important growth. So we have quite a lot of basic data and we know what's going on the organic land, at least for a major part. You can actually see the no details. That's 12% of the organic agricultural land where we just don't know what's happening, which is not so bad. Now I wanted to tell you about a new thing that we did last year. We were asked by IISD in Canada if we could contribute to their report, the State of Sustainability Initiatives. It's a report that looks at rainforest, fair trade, UTZ, Roundtable for Sustainable Soil, all these sustainability labels and organic. And they asked us if we could provide the organic data for bananas, cocoa, coffee, palm oil, tea, soy, and sugarcane. And actually what they wanted to have was the production data and the data on how much of the production, organic production, was actually sold as organic. And so at first I would like to show you a chart which shows you those of major VSS, as it's called, voluntary sustainability standards, organic, UTZ, Fair Trade and Rainforest Alliance for these 7 selected crops. And there you can actually see that organic has the highest area. This is now just the hectares compared to UTZ, but they're all fairly similar. But you can actually see already here that UTZ is not as diversified as organic. UTZ has just 2 crops. And that is probably even a reflection of the total of the UTZ land because they concentrate on these 2 crops. Fair trade is a bit more diversified. Rainforest has 4 crops in this report. They might have more. This is just these 4 crops. But I think other than for organic, for these labels, it covers quite a big part of their total. And this is looking at 7 crops now by crop and then by standard. And you can see that organic is really, has a good distribution. Organic is available for all crops. UTZ is only cocoa and coffee. Fair trade has a bit more, Rainforest Alliance, bananas, cocoa, coffee, and tea. And if you now I looked at these 7 crops, so we looked at that and looked at how much this is of the overall organic agricultural land, and we actually found it's not very much, it's just 4%. Whereas for the other labels, it's probably most of it, or maybe not so much for trade, but for the others certainly. So, but they were not happy with the area. They also wanted to know the production. And there, we got a bit stuck, but we then dared to calculate it using the FAO data and assume that a certain percentage of the FAO yields were maybe correct for organic. And we thus could compare the organic data also for the production with the other standards. And we discovered, for instance, that in the Dominican Republic, a lot of the, or almost all of the production is organic. And yeah, these are the figures that we came up with. Quite high percentages actually for some crops. I mean, if you look at it globally, if you look at it at the country level, it would probably be quite different. Even more, you could get countries that have higher shares. Bananas, 0.5% of the global production, cocoa, 2.4%, coffee, 3%, soybeans, 0.2%, and tea, 1.1%. So we did that, yeah. And we also actually dared to calculate how much of this was actually sold, but I won't show you this. You can read it in the SSI report, it's all there. And to conclude, I'd like to say that with these calculations that they cannot be a replacement for proper data collection, because we really need better data and more data from the certifiers and from other bodies. But yield data and production data are often hard to get, and they are often calculated. But to have a good basis, we would really need better information on standard yields for organic farming by country. And actually, here at this World Congress, the Agri-Benchmark Network worldwide was established, and one of their tasks will be to collect this type of information, economic information, but also information on yields for, yeah, ultimately all countries of the world. So that would help immensely to get a better basis for this sort of thing. Of course, we also need to mention that even the area data that we have are often not complete, and that the quality of the data can vary, because not all countries have well-developed data collection systems. And when we have so many insecurities, and this may of course lead to wrong assumptions as well as maybe, yeah, wrong decisions as well. So we really need to have better data. And we have very good examples, for instance, Peru, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, and they have very good data collection systems, and it would really be good if other parts of the world did that as well. Of course, we have very good data in Europe, but these countries are really very, very good. I need to include Argentina also at providing export data, which, for instance, for Europe doesn't exist at all. So, as a summary, we can say organic farming grows, continues to grow, more farmland, more producers, market growth, but there is development varies between the countries, but there's definitely scope for further growth, but for better monitoring of the sector, data collection and processing needs to be improved in many countries, and particularly in the area of production, market, and international trade data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So would the both of you like to come up to answer questions in case there are any questions? Ah, there are, lovely. So there's somebody coming with a microphone. Thank you. So would you both like to come up? And maybe you could just share one of those microphones.
Shall I start? Oops, I have questions for both of the speakers, if it's okay. I can start with Madame Chable. I was going to ask if you had any difficulty in terms of if you have done any economical analysis to see how the adoption of these varieties by the farmers in France can be facilitated. Is there like use of those varieties, does it come with the use of less pesticides or herbicide? Is there an economic benefit for the farmers, like in the long term?
What I can say is all the farmers who were involved in participatory plant breeding are using their varieties, so there are no adoption because they are created, their varieties, so they keep them as their baby, and they try to improve them, and the first one with the best variety are nearly at 80% of the F1 hybrid variety, but with no irrigation, with no, they are not obliged to buy seeds, so economically it is okay for them. And there is, for them, the economic reason is not the first one. They are very proud to produce their own varieties, their own product, and to create. So all our farmer breeders, maize breeders, are very. They like breeding. For them, it is like a passion for the first one. And in Brittany, the farmers who are newly involved in participatory breeding, they saw the difference in the field of their neighbor when there is a very dry period, and the population show a better resistance to the dry period. So slowly and slowly, they adopt new varieties, and they make them evolve slowly. So there, and in the seed regulation context also, there is no possibility to sell seeds. So they only exchange in experimental context. So there is no adoption. There is only farmer who come in the group and.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask my second question? Regarding the organic data collection, like in Turkey, there are many, in fact, farmers who are following organic standards, but because it's too expensive, they don't have the luxury to acquire the certificates. I don't know if this is a common case worldwide, but are you considering coming up with a proxy to take into account those not certified organic farmers to present the situation, or not at all?
I would find that very difficult, because I just wouldn't know how to count them. With certification, we have a very clear basis, and we have this international standard which is set through all these equivalence agreements, and to the IFOAM standard, with, of course, the and part of organic is the certification, the 4I principle. And I mean, if I knew how to do this, but I mean, how would you calculate or guess how many non-certified organic farmers there are? Because I find it very hard to know how I would approach this. I mean,
well, in Turkey, I am mainly working towards to observe changes in animal populations, and it's very similar problems, very partial data. What we are trying to do is we are also coming up with indices, and we base sometimes ourselves, if there exists very good expert opinion, on expert opinion. But of course, in such a case, I don't know if this is applicable. That's why I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Right decision.
Yeah, thank you. My question relates to the global data collection as well. Two questions. One is about the comparative data from your research and the FAO data, and I'm sometimes a little confused when I read some of this. But one of the recent FAO reports suggests there's up to somewhat like around 2% of cropland in agriculture production, if I'm reading it correctly, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's the issue of not being certified. They're estimating, but yours suggests up to or around 0.9%, something like that. Am I not reading it correctly, or?
0.9%.
Sorry, yes.
And FAO, I don't know. I mean, FAO, they publish our data mainly on their website and their database. They're using our data, and they collect also among their own network, but they're not so far, and where they have gaps, they use our data. And they publish a statistical report every year, and in the last one, they had those 37 million hectares. So, and that's a bit less than 1% of the total agricultural land.
Well, the Green Economy Agriculture Report came out in 2012, I guess. They cite 2%.
Then you have to check, I don't know, maybe it was 2% of the cropped land. That could be of the arable and the permanent crops.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have the figures there, but
anyway.
2%, I mean, you know, the global agricultural land is about 5 billion hectares, and 37% is, well, I mean, we calculated basically on the basis of the countries that we've included in our survey, so it's something like 0.8% or so.
There could be this issue, though, of certified, non-certified, and they may be using...
I don't know what they included.
My other question relates to other types of data. I know in some of your reports you talk about education and extension, but not very, like there's sometimes if some countries are mentioned, a small little bit of information. Do you collect any systematic data on education systems, organic education and extension?
No, not yet. What we want to start now or take up again is make a data collection on research funding in Europe, and then maybe hopefully expand it worldwide. But education, so I mean, what would be your indicators? How many schools are there?
That type of thing, yeah. I've started to think about a project for that, and that's why I'm just...
No, we would be interesting though, And we have a database and everything, so...
Anyway, I'll talk to you later about that or send you an email.
That's what I wanted to suggest. Very good. So, was there a question in the back somewhere? No? I would have one for you, Veronique. What did you find most challenging on farm when you do on-farm research?
The most challenging today is to have means to have a continuous action. Since the beginning, we are looking for project, program, we are answering for call for proposal to try to have a continuous action. But the difficulties now is to finance the facilitators, because the farmers as always have a lot of work on their farm, and to facilitate communication between farms, to collect data for the researcher, because we cannot be in the field every time. So we need paper, and it's very difficult to finance this kind of person. So we have to think now to stabilize the facilitator's position. And as we have 75 seed association, we need at least 1 or 2 facilitators per association in France. The Réseau Semences Paysannes is very difficult to manage the salary for these all facilitators. And we have to think at the global aspect of the society aspect. So now I am trying to find money from the, we have in France Biocoop, which sell a large part of organic product in France, so we try to have ideas from them to how to finance the quality of the product from the farm and to be able to produce our peasant varieties. So it's not so easy. It's a big challenge to be able to go on and to increase our meat, because we have a lot of demand from the farmers to go on, which means so. And we have very few researchers, so I am to work with farmers sometimes hundreds of kilometers from my lab. So we need to have people on the ground. I visit them sometimes, but that cannot be at the same time all over the countries.
Yeah, sure.
I only want to add something that I think that it was very interesting in terms of Sullivan. Besides all the things that Veronique already said, it was in terms of for instance, of maize, when we have hybrid maize or these varieties, like we have in Portugal, the retail, when the farmer wants to sell, generally he says, okay, maize is maize, it's all the same, and it's not. And Sullivan, it was very important to set some borders.
Could you
to set some borders in terms of quantitative aspects, in terms of protein, in terms of organoleptic aspect.
Hang on,
okay.
And there's a new microphone coming.
So in terms of qualitative aspects, that could give to the farmer some tools that he needs to say, no, it's not the same. This is different, this has high quality, this is for food consumption, and you should pay more for this. Because in terms of harvesting, generally these varieties are less yield than the normal hybrids.
Yeah, very interesting. That's also kind of bridging a gap that we were not asked to bridge, sort of, but that is apparent everywhere in organic agriculture, that apparently the farmer still does not earn as much as he deserves because of such problems. Yeah. Helga, another question to you. You said that some of those Latin American countries were sort of very good in data collection. What do they do exactly?
I mean, they have, they have a governmental data collection system. The government collects the data among the certifiers or among the customs. And data in this case means area, production and exports. And they do not only collect the data, but they also publish them very well on their websites. So the website of SENASA in Argentina, website of the Ministry of Agriculture, no, SENASA in Peru, of the competent authority in Costa Rica. So in some countries it's really good. I mean, there are others where it's not so good, like Brazil, for instance. But definitely we have very good examples that show that it's possible. And so, yeah, and the export data fascinate me particularly because in Europe we don't have that. Obviously, this is because we are importing part of the world. So for us, maybe the exports are not so important, but even that would be good to have. And I think we have some really good examples that show that it's possible. And it would be very good if more governments did it like that, because then we would have solid and good data. And so far we are working a lot with the certifiers who, of course, we do the quality checks, but it means it's not complete, and they give us the data, but we can't force them, whereas the government, they could actually do that. So, yeah, we see it's improving, but we're still not there.
Mm-hmm. And do you see how you, with your huge data collection, can sort of help in bridging gaps between stakeholders, or maybe even strategic things? You were saying something about, well, you might come to false conclusions if you did not have this or that, but is there anything that you can think of?
I mean, our data are used a lot by the stakeholders. I'm amazed where I see them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, bridging the gap, I mean, here I find it really important that governments take this thing more important, and also maybe the private sector, and that we just get better and more solid data. And we have, in this Organic Data Network project, we have this experience with national roundtables, where the experts, national experts, sit together to get really good data. And that is probably a model that should be followed in other countries as well. Yeah, it's just, I think we need to work more together on this internationally, also internationally, to solve all these problems of data quality, classification and everything. I mean, it's a huge field, and Eurostat has done pioneer work in Europe, but on a global level we don't have that. And yeah, on national level would also be good if it was taken, because people need these data, they want them, they work with them, they are in action plans, and I find our globe, because, yeah, it's...
I can give an example. Yesterday, last week, I was writing the final report of Soliban for the Commission, and the context of organic farming, I have to actualize the data. So I used your data last week to actualize the context of Soliban. So it was very funny to be together, because last week I was reading all the report. So thanks.
Julia, do you want to say something about bridges? No.
About gaps, maybe?
I can witness.
So I assume that here for the practitioners track, as it's the same as in the scientific track, that we will sum up what's been said here and sort of find out the essentials. So in case there's anyone in the auditorium who wants to contribute, please welcome to contact me, Sylvia Warnecke. Please come up after the session to me then, and I would like to contact you then as well.
Yeah.
And in case it is not supposed to happen, that I shall not write up anything, then I will tell you as well.
Okay, good.
Okay, so then thank you very much. Is there anything left to ask or to say? No? Then thank you very much. And have a good continuing Congress.
Yeah.